Welcome to Board Game Animal. My name is Justin. I've played a lot of Reiner Knizia games. And for that matter, in all honesty, I've played a lot of Bitewing's Knizia games. And it's kind of crazy that the hits keep coming. Although, my thoughts on the new Cosmic SILOS trilogy are far from what I was expecting them to be initially going into these games. So let's just get right into it. First, I want to talk some overall thoughts, just across the board, that apply to all three of these games. Then we'll go through them individually and wrap it up with final scores for them all. As far as what the games have in common, the first thing to obviously start with is the stellar production of all three of them. Essentially, every image or video that you see here will feature the upgraded components for these games. And despite the fact that I often do prefer minimalism in both production and sizing games, Bitewing knows how to make downright gorgeous upgrades that not only look pretty, but actually elevate the quality of gameplay. Ultimately, if you can get them, get them. But the games do speak for themselves at the end of the day. So regardless, I do recommend you check out these games. Also, initially, I didn't put two and two together and notice that the artists across all three of these games are three of, if not, my top three favorite artists in board games, period. Vincent Dutrait, Kwanchi Moria, and Murray Bergeron are all ridiculously talented, and their work on this trilogy is superb. Another thing that all three of these games have in common is that all of them have quality involved player presence during gameplay. What I mean by that is I especially appreciate across the hobby that there are a lot of games that, infamously feature downtime. When it's not your turn, maybe you're planning ahead, you're in your own head, and if you're diligent, or maybe you find yourself just waiting for it to come around to you. But all three games here are of the ilk where every turn of the game is interesting, no matter whose turn it is. You are invested. All three of these are really rich in interaction, cascading effects, and big consequences. But now let's talk some specifics. SILOS is a re-implementation of Municipium.
I think it's Municipium. Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, we're dealing with area majority, where you're playing as aliens, essentially abducting humans of different varieties.
Or cows, which are as good as any human.
Yes, thank you. And you're doing this in order to essentially do set collection and convert that into victory points. As the UFO moves around the board, or through triggered events that happen, the folks who have control over different locations are ultimately either going to get the better choice, or the better choice of different humans or the cow that are at the locations respectively. A key part of the loop of SILOS is the element of essentially counting cards, which is made visually really intuitive with the spaces around the board. On top of that, you have one-time abilities you can activate in place of the common deck for strong swings in the moment, and it's overall an interesting balancing act of moving your aliens around, controlling locations, activating their special powers, and trying to time things right, watching the UFO make its way to the next location. All in all, SILOS is quite a bit of a romp that I think ultimately feels a bit different from a lot of popular area majority games. Especially, I think, in this case, due to the incredible theme and vibes that have been infused in this version from Bitewing. Taking something that ultimately had somewhat dry vibes, infusing it with a lot of character, turning it into something very colorful and lively. Ego is something else. I mean, look alone at the number of mechanisms that it's listed to have on BGG. And now past that, just looking at the game, at first glance, it looks positively overwhelming. However, the game itself is actually far from heavy and easy to understand very shortly into the teach. Once you get the gist of the layout, the progression, the symbols, and despite all of the things that the game includes, I introduce it to people as an exercise in risk management. Yes, there's hand management, auctions, push your luck, and it's all in an effort to manage resources as efficiently as possible. But the game itself truly feels like an experience more than anything else. While not really being super thematic, the way Ego feels to me is like you invited your friends over to play cards. Think like generic, classic card games. Now, strip away the details of those games and just leave those vibes around the table, what it feels like to engage with people on that level. And then introduce a dynamic narrative, if you will, or at the very least, a structure. You're playing auctions and risk events in order to gain cards, resources, victory points, and to avoid offending the aliens you're attempting to greet. You also have optional risk events, which are essentially push your luck exercises to gain cards into your hand. For me, Each auction and risk event deliver the vibes of classic, traditional card gameplay. In the idea of the feels of saying, hit me, some element of bluffing, the hand management side of things. The energy around the table feels that kind of familiar. All while taking steps of deciding when to risk it, push it, or play it safe. And those are bookended by a healthy sprinkling of many momentary decisions to help determine what kind of shape you're in, or maybe what focus you're pursuing. They make a game where everyone starts pretty on par with each other become wildly different after even only a few choices. One person could draw 2 cards when someone else takes a coin. Maybe you chose to convert victory points in order to remove some negative offense tokens and someone else didn't, etc. Until everyone is just in a wildly different boat, making their intentions in each and every auction you play all the more interesting. The variable state of the board layout during setup, also with the options of the longer boards or additional modules in the expansion, make for an overflowing amount of variety in a game that already features a cornucopia of variety in the ever-branching decisions you will make during gameplay. Now, I know of the bunch, Ego may be the most divisive. It's not going to be for everyone. But dang, there is something about this one that constantly makes me want to keep coming back to play it. I'll get back to that in a second, but for now, let's move on. Orbit is where everyone is trying to visit every planet and circle back to their homeworld, and whoever does so first wins. Orbit's got that clean Knizia charm of outward simplicity, with a lot of inward depth. Super quick turns that are elegantly simple. Play a card, move your ship, move a planet, and maybe a little something else. The game delivers so many juicy decisions on every turn, moving planets in a way that's beneficial to you while not inadvertently giving your opponent a free ride is such a fun balance to try and parse. All of that thinkiness, and yet really, really simple to teach and play. I think this is the most approachable of the 3 in this series by a long shot, to the point where even the expansion modules are the kind that I just leave in and consider includable right from the start with no extra overhead whatsoever. A game that's overtly teachable, engaging, and most importantly, fun. Now, here is the hard part, coming down on scores for all 3 of these. And I'm going to do these in order low to high, so bear with me. For SILOS, the core loop of the game itself I really enjoy. But there is something about this one that simply does not keep calling me back, and I don't know why. When you look at, say, my top 25 or top 50 games of all time, you will find a couple games or a few that I haven't played in quite some time, maybe even a year or more. Because for me, when it comes to games and my favorites, it's not always about the frequency of play, but it's about the pull to want to play it. And actually, for me, a lot of Knizia games have that pull, where at the drop of a hat, if I had the opportunity to play one of them, I immediately would. That draw is always there. And SILOS just doesn't do that for me, which is strange because I've actually really enjoyed each and every play of the game while I'm actually playing it. But it's one that I think ultimately where I come down to on it is the fact that at the end of the day, for a game night or for recommendations for folks, it's not one that I could ever see myself intentionally going out of my way to pick over many other Knizia games or many other area control games. So in and of itself, I think I would give SILOS a 6 out of 10. However, thinking about the fact that every single time I play it, I have such a good time in the moment and I enjoy what's happening around the table and I really enjoy the theme, I think a lot of that has to do with the production and theming that was put into the game itself. Because I think what Bitewing made of this design is absolutely astounding. Just like at the end of the day, a frustrating theme or the lack of quality in production might dip a score down, for this it'll bring it up. And I'm coming down on SILOS with a 7 out of 10. So it is still a recommendation, because I can easily see folks being drawn to this game. This helps inform you a little bit if it is your cup of tea. Because believe me, I see it, but at the end of the day, it's just not the one for me. Orbit is just absolutely solid. I'd almost humorously call it obviously good, but I don't know if that means anything to anyone other than me. I love everything about this one. Like I said, it's a very classic, clean Knizia design. Really nice to see as the only wholly brand new thing in this trilogy. I think it's something that gamers of every intensity can enjoy. So Orbit ultimately is a heavy recommendation for me at a 9 out of 10. And finally, if it wasn't already clear, I love Ego. I've said for a long time, the only real common thread amongst my favorite games is the incredibly rich dynamic that they build around the table almost instantly. The unique experience Ego delivers does just that in a very different, clever way. That no matter how the game plays out, every single game that I've personally played in Ego, no matter how good or bad I've done in the game, is just the most delightful experience. So yeah, Ego is actually a 10 for me. There is something about that game. Every time I sit down to play, it's like looking out and mapping the journey ahead, trying to plan the best you can, not knowing what to expect. And there is something about those risk events, the auctions that are so engaging and always create memorable stories from around the table. I'm having an absolute blast with this one. I don't want to jump the gun, but I will say it is probably my favorite game of 2025 so far. We'll revisit that a little later. And here's the question, is this my new favorite Knizia game? That's the question this video ultimately is teasing. And deep down, in my gut, I want to say yes. But the fact that I haven't had the time with it that I've had with games like Ra, Zuvadis, and others makes it hard to say. I want to let it cook a little longer and marinate. I'm sure I will be able to say definitively at the end of the year when we do our top 100 Knizia games. But in the meantime, just know I do recommend all three of these on some level. Personally though, they range from good to great to absolutely spectacular. I sure hope that this was helpful. If you've played these and want to leave your thoughts below, or if you have questions, please do that as well. Thank you so much for watching, liking, and subscribing. Really appreciating the support that we've been getting lately. And don't forget to always play board games like an animal.
Oh, like the cows being abducted.
I don't really think that they're playing games, but